Have you ever looked out at the vast, endless ocean and wondered what would happen if it just kept rising? What if every mountain, every city, every last patch of dry ground disappeared beneath the waves, just like in the movies? It's a terrifying thought, a world swallowed by water. But could it actually happen? Could our entire planet become one giant ocean? This isn't just a wild adventure scenario. It's a question that pushes our understanding of the world we live on. Surviving in the wild is tough, but surviving a world with no land at all, that's the ultimate test of human grit and ingenuity. Let's look at the science. The idea of a global flood is a powerful one, but the reality is a bit more complicated. For the entire planet to be covered in water, we would need a colossal amount of it. If all the ice caps and glaciers on Earth were to melt completely, sea levels would certainly rise dramatically, by about 70 meters or 230 feet. This would be catastrophic, flooding coastal cities like London, New York, and Tokyo, and reshaping our continents forever. It would change the world as we know it, creating a crisis on a scale we've never seen before. However, even with all that melted ice, the highest mountains would still stand tall. Mount Everest, for example, towers over 8,848 meters above sea level. To cover that, you would need more water than currently exists on our planet's surface and in its atmosphere combined. So, a complete movie-style water world where no land is visible is scientifically improbable with the water we have. But a world where the vast majority of land is gone, leaving only the highest mountain peaks as tiny isolated islands? That is a scenario that forces us to think about survival in a whole new, very wet way. This distinction is crucial for survival. If there are still mountaintop islands, they become the most valuable real estate in the world. They would be the last bastions of solid ground, places to anchor, to perhaps grow something, and to find refuge from the relentless motion of the sea. But for the millions of people unable to reach these last specks of Earth, the open ocean would become their permanent home. They would have to adapt or perish, learning to live on the water, sourcing everything they need from the deep blue. This is where the real challenge begins, a global test of human endurance. So, you found yourself adrift in an endless ocean. Your first priority is shelter. You can't just tread water forever, you need a base. People would become masters of salvage, a bit like modern-day pirates, but for survival, not treasure. Anything that floats is a potential home. Old ships, barges, even large pieces of debris from the drowned world could be lashed together to create floating communities, or atolls. These makeshift towns would be constantly moving, drifting with the currents. Your new house might be built from salvaged plastic, wood, and metal, a testament to human resourcefulness in the face of disaster. Building these floating platforms would be a huge community effort. You'd need engineers, builders, and scavengers all working together. The structures would have to be incredibly resilient to withstand the constant battering of waves and storms. Think of a network of interconnected rafts and boats, a floating city that can expand or contract as needed. People would learn to use wind and currents to their advantage, rigging sails to their homes to navigate the vast ocean. This wouldn't be a luxury cruise. It would be a constant, tough, hands-on job just to keep your home afloat and safe from the elements. Life on these New World atolls would be cramped and communal. Privacy would become a luxury of the past. Everyone would have a role to play in the survival of the group. Some would be tasked with maintaining the structure, patching leaks and strengthening connections. Others would be responsible for lookout duty, scanning the horizon for storms, resources, or other groups of survivors. Children would grow up knowing nothing but the sway of the ocean, their playground a network of ropes and weathered decks. It's a hard life, but a shared one, where your neighbor's survival is directly linked to your own. Safety would be paramount. A fire on a wooden and plastic raft in the middle of the ocean would be an absolute disaster. Strict rules and drills would be a part of daily life. Protection from the elements would also be a constant battle. The sun's glare reflecting off the water would be blinding and dangerous, so makeshift awnings and protective clothing would be essential. And then there are the storms. A hurricane or a massive rogue wave could tear a floating community apart in minutes. Survival would mean being constantly prepared, always vigilant, and ready to work as a team to face down Mother Nature's fury. In a water world, your supermarket is the ocean beneath you. Finding food would become the central task of every single day. Fishing would be the primary source of protein, but you'd have to be clever about it. Survivors would become expert anglers, using lines, nets, and spears crafted from salvaged materials. They would learn the patterns of marine life, following schools of fish and understanding the ocean's seasons. But you can't just rely on catching fish. Overfishing an area could leave you starving, so you would need to be nomadic, always moving to new feeding grounds. Beyond fishing, people would have to get creative. Seaweed and algae would become staple foods, a vital source of vitamins and minerals. Floating farms could be developed, cultivating edible seaweed in contained nets that drift alongside the main settlement. This would provide a more reliable food source than just hunting for fish. Some might even try to raise fish in underwater pens, a form of aquaculture adapted to the open ocean. Every part of a catch would be used. Fish bones could be carved into tools or hooks, and oils could be used for lamps or waterproofing materials. Waste is a luxury you cannot afford. Fresh water is even more critical than food. You can survive for weeks without eating, but only a few days without water. Drinking salt water is a death sentence. It dehydrates you faster. The most reliable method for getting fresh water would be desalination. Survivors would build solar stills, simple devices that use the sun's heat to evaporate seawater, leaving the salt behind and collecting the condensed fresh water. These would be precious. Every drop of collected rainwater would also be saved, channeled from tarps and roofs into secure containers. Finding and managing fresh water would be a constant life or death struggle. The diet would be monotonous and challenging. Without land, there are no fruits, no vegetables, no grains. This would lead to nutritional deficiencies. Scurvy caused by a lack of vitamin C would be a real and constant danger. Survivors would have to learn which types of seaweed or fish organs contain the vitamins they need to stay healthy. Traditional medicine would be replaced by a new marine-based knowledge. Perhaps the liver of a certain deep-sea fish could ward off illness. This knowledge would be passed down, becoming as vital to survival as knowing how to tie a knot or catch a fish. Life on the open ocean is fraught with peril that goes beyond just finding food and water. The environment itself is your greatest adversary. Massive storms could appear on the horizon with little warning, unleashing powerful winds and colossal waves that could smash your floating home to pieces. Constant exposure to the sun, wind, and salt spray would take its toll on both people and structures. Skin sores, eye problems from the glare, and the relentless dampness would be a part of daily life. You're in a constant battle against rust, rot, and the sheer power of the sea. Then there are the dangers lurking in the deep. The ocean is full of predators, and without the safety of land, you are in their territory. Sharks would be a constant threat, attracted to the waste from settlements or the struggle of a hooked fish. Encounters would be terrifying and potentially lethal. People would need to develop new ways to protect themselves, perhaps by creating underwater barriers with nets or using sharp objects to create a perimeter. But it's not just sharks. Other marine creatures, perhaps some we've never seen before, could pose a threat. The deep sea is the last great wilderness on Earth, and in this world, you're living right on its doorstep. In the face of these relentless dangers, the only way to survive is together. Lone survival would be nearly impossible in the long term. Communities would need to form, based on cooperation and trust. Rules and a simple form of governance would be necessary to manage resources, settle disputes, and organize defenses. Trade between different floating settlements might develop, with groups exchanging different types of salvaged goods, food, or skills. One group might be expert sailmakers, while another might have a working solar still. This network of mutual support would be the foundation of a new human society. So, could we truly survive in a world without land? It would be the hardest thing humanity has ever done. It would strip us down to our most basic needs and force us to adapt in ways we can barely imagine. Our technology, our social structures, our very bodies would have to change. But if there's one thing I've learned in the wild, it's that the human spirit is incredibly resilient. We are problem solvers and survivors. It would be a brutal, unforgiving existence, but perhaps, just perhaps, we could make it. And in doing so, we might learn a profound lesson about our dependence on the planet and the incredible strength we find in working together.